Good morning, students. You must be thinking why I am showing this picture to you. This is the mouth-watering, delicious picture. Definitely, we all love to eat different kinds of food. Have you wondered where your food ingredients come from? Wheat, rice, pulses, vegetables, spices, and fruits form a major component of human food. Where do they come from? Who grows them and how are these converted to edible form? We will get the answers of all these questions in our next chapter, chapter number 5, Agriculture. Before we start the detailed study of agriculture, let us take an introduction of economic activity. Any activity in which making, purchasing or selling goods or services is involved, that is known as the economic activity. When we classify the economic activities, we are having three sectors. One, primary sector, second, secondary sector, and third, tertiary sector. Primary sector involves all the activities like extraction, collection and production of natural resources like agriculture, fishing, mining, etc. Secondary sector having all the activities which involve processing resources obtained from the primary activity. For example, food processing, packing industry, manufacturing industry like steel plants, oil refineries, etc. Tertiary sector involves all those activities which facilitate both primary and secondary activities and are also called services. The examples of tertiary sector are transportation, trading, etc. Here in this chapter, we will study about the primary activity of agriculture. Agriculture is the primary and the oldest activity practiced by humankind. It provides 90% of our food and beverage requirements, the bulk of our clothing fiber, and large amounts of raw material. This activity also encompasses growing of roots, vegetables, flowers, rearing of livestock, besides grains, pulse, and spices. Nearly half of the world's population is directly connected with the primary activity of agriculture. Agriculture is dependent on soil, climate, and water resources. Plants do not grow on rocks, deserts, saline areas, and snow-bound areas. It is because of this that the earlier civilizations were settled close to fertile areas of river valleys and plains where they could grow their food and maintain their animals or livestock. The land where crops are grown is known as arable land. Agriculture, also known as farming, can be considered as a system. This needs two types of inputs, physical inputs and human inputs. These can be better understood by the table given here. These inputs have to be processed by plowing the lands, sowing seeds, providing fertilizers, carrying out weeding, spraying pesticides, and then harvesting. The ultimate output is the crop. In certain farms, which are also rearing livestock, the output would include items like wool, dairy, and poultry products. There are two broad types of farming that prevail in varied parts of the world: subsistence farming and commercial farming. Subsistence farming is classified into two categories: intensive farming and primitive farming. Primitive farming is further having two types: shifting cultivation and nomadic herding. On the other hand side, commercial farming is having three types. One is commercial grain farming, mixed farming, plantation agriculture. Subsistence agriculture is self-sufficient in farming, in which the farmers focus on growing enough food to feed themselves and their families. size of the farm is small. Manual labor works mostly with the family members with the help of simple farming tools and animals. Intensive farming, it is practiced in regions with large populations and small farms. Though it may be for subsistence, a large part of the produce also enters national trade. Intensive tillage generates high yields from every square foot of land. Practice of multiple cropping is employed where two or more crops are grown each year. It returns fertility to the soil and balances water shortages in the dry months. Plenty of organic and chemical fertilizers are used to ensure high yields and continued fertility. In the thickly forested areas where rainfall is heavy and ground vegetation regenerates quickly, people clear a plot of land by felling the trees and burning them. Ashes are then mixed with the soil and crops like potato, yam, maize, etc. are grown. Once the soil loses its fertility, the land is abandoned and cultivators move to new areas. This kind of farming is still practiced in certain areas of Amazon basin, tropical Africa and northeast India. Primitive subsistence farming is further classified into two categories. One is shifting cultivation and the other one is nomadic herding. Shifting cultivation is also known as slash and burn agriculture. In different parts of the world, it is known by different names. For example, in the northeast India, it is known as zooming. In Mexico, it is called milpa. In Malaysia, it is called ladang. In Brazil, it is known as roca. Nomadic herding. This type of farming involves output of animal produce like milk, meat, wool and hides, etc. It is practiced in semi-arid and arid regions of North Africa, Central Asia and some parts of India like Rajasthan and Jammu Kashmir. The herdsmen move from one place to another with their animals in search of fodder and water. This is necessitated due to climatic conditions and terrain. Sheep, camel, yak and goats are most commonly reared. Commercial farming. In this type of agricultural practice, the output is not meant for consumption at a local level only. Usually, it involves the production of a large surplus for export. Commercial farming requires large area, modern technology and huge amount of capital. The main objective of this farming is to get higher profits and it tries to get the higher yield from the field by using high yielding variety of seed, fertilizers, pesticides and better means of irrigation. Commercial farming is of three types. Commercial grain farming. It is practiced in those parts of the world where population is relatively low and land is available in plenty. Little human labor is employed as all work from plowing to harvesting is done by machines. Agriculture is highly capital intensive. All the produce is stored in large silos or storage bins before being packed and shipped out. Wheat is the main crop and is of two varieties, spring and winter wheat. It is this crop specialization that allows a large surplus for commercial trade. Sometimes other crops are grown in rotation in the off season after the main wheat crop to enhance soil fertility. Mixed farming. Livestock ranching and the cultivation of crops are carried on side by side, due to which it is called mixed farming. Large numbers of one type of livestock are raised on huge ranches for their milk, meat and wool. Careful breeding, tending and feeding of livestock entails huge capital investment on the ranches. Farms vary in size from about 80 acres in Europe to over 300 acres in USA and Canada. The crops produce high yields to feed the farmers and the livestock. A large amount of the crop is also sold commercially. Skilled help is hired during planting and harvesting and for the care of the livestock. Most crop work is mechanized. The growing and processing of a single cash crop on a very large scale, mainly for export, is known as plantation farming. It is locally managed by private companies. The choice of crop depends on the prevailing physical conditions. Large estates are needed to generate large yields for export. All work from plowing to processing of the crop is organized on an extremely efficient and scientific basis. Most plantation crops take 3 or 6 years to mature and after a period of production require replanting. Fertilizers are required on a large scale to ensure a good yield and pesticides are used to protect the crop. Plantation farming is therefore extremely capital intensive. The finished product is traded both nationally and internationally. Major crops. The major crops of the world can be grouped as food crops, fiber crops, beverage crops. Under the food crops, we will study about wheat, rice, maize and millet. Wheat. Wheat is the staple diet of a large part of the world, especially in the temperate lands. Most wheat is grown under extensive commercial grain farming. If we talk about the favorable conditions for growing wheat, it needs temperature 10 degrees Celsius at the time of sowing and 15 degrees Celsius to 20 degrees Celsius at the time of ripening. Rainfall is needed 40 centimeter to 75 centimeter but not more than 100 centimeter. It needs well-drained loamy soils, especially the brown prairie and Chernozems which are rich in humus. Undulating plains allowing drainage of soil are very favorable for the growth of wheat. Millets. Millets include jawar, bajra and ragi. Jawar is the third most important crop of India, grown in most areas like Maharashtra, Karnataka, etc. and hardly requires irrigation. Bajra, grown well on sandy soil and shallow black soil. Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra are major producer of bajra. Ragi is the crop of dry region and grow well on red, black, sandy, loamy and shallow black soil. Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Himachal Pradesh are the major producer of ragi. Rice. Rice is the second most staple food crop of the world. It needs a large amount of water for initial and subsequent growth and therefore it is commonly cultivated in tropical and subtropical areas. It requires a clay soil. In India, rice is cultivated in eastern coastal strip, Bengal, etc. Maize. It is originated in Central America. Maize or corn is an important food crop for humans and animals too. Several varieties of maize are grown the world over. The temperature needed for the growth of maize is between 21 degrees Celsius to 27 degrees Celsius with warm summers for the growing period. The rainfall should be between 50 centimeter to 80 centimeter. If we talk about the soil needed, it needs well-drained loamy soils, alluvial and red soils. Plateau and undulating plains as well as hilly areas are favorable relief for the growth of maize. The second category under the major crops is the fiber crops. Here we will talk about jute and cotton. Let us talk about jute first. Children, jute is also known as the golden fiber on account of its color and high value. Jute needs plain alluvial soil with stagnant water. The most suitable climate for growing jute is warm and wet. Bangladesh is the leading producer of jute in the world, followed by India. In India, it is mainly grown in West Bengal. Cotton is the second most important fiber crop. Successful growing of cotton needs a long frost-free period with plenty of sunshine and moderate rainfall. It grows well on black and alluvial soil. Egypt, China, India, Pakistan and USA are the leading producers of cotton. In India, the major producing areas are Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra. Now, let us talk about the beverage crops under the major crops. We are having two types of beverage crops. One is tea and other one is coffee. Obtained from the leaves of an evergreen bush, tea is the most popular beverage in the world over. The tea bush yields leaves only in the third year. The tea plant is an evergreen plant which grows mainly on hill slopes of tropical and subtropical regions. It needs cool climate and well distributed rainfall. It is generally grown at an altitude of up to 5,000 feet above mean sea level. It needs well drained loamy soil. China is the largest producer of tea, followed by India, Sri Lanka and Kenya. In India, it is grown in Assam, North Bengal and Karnataka. Students, do you know the tea packets have CTC written on them? What does it mean? Machinery processed tea has three stages: crush, tear, curl or cut, tear, curl. Hence the name CTC tea. Coffee. Coffee is a popular brewed beverage which is taken from the coffee seeds of the coffee plant. Coffee plantation requires warm and wet climate and well drained loamy soil. Brazil is the largest producer of coffee, followed by Vietnam, Colombia, Indonesia and India. In India, Coorg and Kerala are famous for coffee plantations. Students, after the independence, with the advancement of technology, we also have advanced in agricultural field. So there are so many agricultural developments which we are going to talk about now. The quantum of agricultural produce can be increased by various methods which we have already started implementing. One is use of high yielding variety of seeds, use of manure and fertilizers, increasing the area to be cultivated by improving irrigation, soil testing and improving it by chemical action so as to make it more fertile. Imparting knowledge to the farmers about new technological developments and hybrid seeds. Better and calculated use of insecticides and pesticides to prevent loss of crop. Consolidation of land holdings. Provision of proper storage and transportation system. Use of machinery at various stages of agricultural production. Agricultural production increased with the use of high yielding variety of seeds, fertilizers, good and improved facilities of irrigation and by the use of latest technology and machinery. The production of food grain, especially wheat, increased tremendously in Punjab and Haryana. Developing countries with lower economic wealth of population, smaller land holdings and limited capital have compelled people to pursue subsistence farming. On the other hand, countries like Canada, Australia and USA have vast areas with limited population, thus allowing large land holdings which are more suitable for achieving higher farm output. To understand the difference in the two types of farming, we shall consider them in detail. When we compare the farm in India and USA, we reach to the conclusion that an average farm in Indian village is of approximately 2 hectares. The peasant farmer with his limited resources and alone purchases seeds. With the help of family members and the few cattle which he has, he plows the fields and sows the seeds. With the knowledge and expertise shared within the community, he procures pesticides and fertilizers to improve the farm production. Depending upon his financial condition, he irrigates the land with the best possible means and harvests the produce with hired labor or rented equipment. As he lacks good storage facilities, he is compelled to sell it immediately at the prevalent rates. He may also indulge in selling the produce of his cattle and poultry to the cooperative societies in the village. The complete produce of the peasant farmer are split between his own requirement for the year and the surplus available for selling in the market. On the other hand side, we find that the American farms are very large in size. Farms are highly mechanized. Most of the work on the farm is done with the help of machines like seed, drills, combine harvester, tractors, threshers, etc. Farmers use high yielding variety of seeds, and the agriculture is basically commercial in nature. Farmers grow crops to sell in the market. Farmers are well educated and keep updating their knowledge with the help of books and by attending various seminars in the agricultural universities. Farmers use fertilizers and pesticides to increase the production. They are not dependent on the rainfall for the water supply but use good means of irrigation. They also have good storage facilities. Crops are sown after testing the fertility of the soil. With this comparison of farm in India and farm in USA, we are completing this chapter. I hope all of you have understood. Have a good day, students. Thank you so much.